people who are not appreciative of some of my reporting and write about it quite a bit, and sort of deconstruct some of my writing on the Amish or on some of the early cases, or you name it. As a journalist, I'm used to it, and some of it's kind of amusing, and some of it's a little irritating. But there was one episode that really struck me as showing how hard it is to really have a civil conversation about some of these things. There was a blogger named Kathleen Seidel who writes at neurodiversity.org, and has been very critical of me. Basically accused me of stalking somebody's first diagnosed cases because I was trying to figure out if we could find an association with any toxin or anything else. Sent an order to my boss, which essentially was an invitation to fire me, all those kind of things. Well, recently she was subpoenaed in a case, a vaccine case, by an attorney who basically wanted everything she had, all her documents, all her emails, everything else, which, as a journalist, to me, that was just clearly wrong and clearly a threat to what I was doing as well. And there's another blogger named Aurak who basically sent an open letter to me and David Kirby and said, well, what are you guys going to do about this? You're journalists, so you should condemn this action, this attempt to subpoena her, and I bet you won't do it. Well, so a couple of days went by, and David and I talked, and we sent Mr. Aurak an email back and said, we condemn it. We think that this is unwarranted and is a threat to all of us and should be quashed. And so he printed that without comment. But it was so funny because in the 2 days it took for us to respond, which I think was a fairly timely response, the blogosphere was just like, these guys are cowards, they'll never say anything, they could dish it out, but they would never defend anybody else. Yeah, so there was all this stuff on the record, and then of course we did exactly what they were urging us to do, and there was silence, just dead silence. And in fact, one blogger had a countdown clock. It was still running. It is. Which basically says, here's the length of time it has taken for Olmsted and Kirby to not respond to this letter. And so it was ticking. It was up to 2.5 days or something. And then we responded, and then this blogger said, well, you didn't respond in the right way because you just sent an open letter back to him. You didn't post it on your website. You didn't do this. You didn't. So the clock is still ticking that we haven't responded. So, you take what you can from it. You try to listen for anything that's useful in terms of information. Sometimes they tell you things that they don't mean to in terms of how, we learned things about the Amish from a blogger who tried to destroy my reporting about that because he basically talked to somebody who confirmed there were very few cases of classic regressive autism. So, it's, that's the way it is.
Specifically for you, Dan, what about other reporters? I mean, forget all the other bloggers.
Those guys,
yeah. Other reporters, do you get other reporters saying, I'm interested in following up on what you did, or
well,
I think you're wrong?
Are you an idiot for doing this?
Most reporters either ignore me or, but Julie asked to link to my piece where I ran a photo of an Amish child who had regressive autism and did it on her blog. But I think if the mainstream was as with it as Julie and Jim, we wouldn't have a problem anyway. So I'm not sure that there's much pickup. I think some of the stuff that I've written about the very early cases and the connection with Mercury is pretty interesting, and to either criticize or comment on in any way, and there's just dead silence, which is one reason, as Mark said, we want to write a book and put some depth to that and get it in front of a different audience that is going to hopefully understand what we think is the significance of it, because it just lays there.
Well, and part of that is there's no time to read everything. I posted to that one because I happened to see it, but I'm sure you've written other things that were worthy of trying to highlight, but you can't read everything.
Right,
and,
that's right.
I would link to Kim's, I would link to anyone's stuff. I could easily do something with both of you guys. We're so multimedia now that it's really an advantage, but time is the limit of that.
Yeah.
That's why. Make Age of Autism your homepage on your computer.
If I could just add one suggestion, I've written about this, but I think every major paper and news outlet and TV organization, they should have an autism beat reporter. this is a big freaking deal. We'll call it childhood illness reporter, but get on the story and get somebody with the expertise. And I know that Sam Zell is, you know, running out of money and everything
The Washington
else.
Post just laid off 100.
And they laid off 100 people. But I'm telling you, one reason that the print media may be in decline is because they're not paying attention to what people really care about.
Right.
And so,
One out of 150
get out
kids,
there and
that is an
yeah.
epidemic, regardless of what officer all the rest of these assholes think. You got it.
but Julie understands this. She understands this, and so does Jenna. And listen to what they've done. Listen to what they've done to try to get this out there. It's great. But
Julie, I'm curious, I know that we talked a little bit about this, but because I know that you have Julie has a whole recovery series on her blog. So it's a series of stories, and for parents that have children who, my child isn't recovered, but I did a recovery story because that's what we're going for. But
It's recovering.
recovering, yeah.
I started doing this. I was just getting all these stories, and I didn't really have time to record them all. Some of them draw a lot of discussion, especially if the parent has said, "My child got a vaccine, and immediately after that started to regress," and I inevitably get ORAC calling me woo-friendly, and
Julie, by the way, ORAC is an oncologist in New Jersey, this gentleman who blogs as ORAC. So if you ever find yourself needing cancer treatments in New Jersey, just give you an idea of a healer who is coming after our community. So
they're very
viciously.
Mainstream doctors are very threatened. But so I posted Sarah's story, I think. Is that the one that triggered Alexander Plank? Anyway, I wrote.
Yeah.
One of the parents was writing. Tried chelation with their child, and someone wrote in, and he was a very high functioning Asperger's and part of the neurodiversity movement that I didn't even know existed, because I didn't dream that it would be controversial that you try to use some therapies to alleviate suffering. But anyway, he wrote in. He wrote in and said, "This is what they always do." He wrote in, posted this comment, this really inflammatory comment, saying, this is completely irresponsible journalism, which is another story because a blog is not the Chicago Tribune. It is run by it's my own little space underneath the Chicago Tribune, but it is not a reported story like you're going to see in the newspaper. There's totally different rules, and we make up these rules as we go on. But so he said it's irresponsible journalism, and that I'm endangering children's lives because I'm promoting these techniques, and just really kind of serious charges. And he didn't just post it, he emailed it to the 3 top editors of the newspaper, and like that. Had never even read any of it, but once he emailed it to them, they fired a note back and said, "We take care of this, what's going on?" And so then I with the blog, it's nice because you can immediately address these issues. So I let Alex tell his story, and then I followed it up, and that generated a whole other discussion, because he does have some points. And then I wrote a perspective piece, which allows me to use my opinion, but kind of laying out for people the debate over the recovery movement. And it was opinion, so I was able to kind of say what I thought. But the response is predictable in the sense that some parents come to the site knowing what they're going to see, and they come for support. Others have a Google alert and are just ready for a knee-jerk reaction, and they don't actually read what's there. They just respond off what they think they've read. And I really do try to listen to all sides, even the people that are very rude. It's just one last thing on